everyone, and welcome to our week 9 of our summer interview bootcamp. And I can't believe it, today is our last week of the bootcamp. And I am really glad that we have another amazing guest. We'll ask her to introduce herself shortly. Everybody can probably see Sharon on the screen, and we'll ask her to tell us a little bit about herself. Today, our focus is going to be extracurricular activities. How do you talk about them in your interviews? And also just some of the weird left field kind of questions. Some of the examples include, what are your hobbies and what animals do you associate yourself with? Or if you were an animal, what would you be? And believe it or not, these are real interview questions. So Sharon, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure, Heather, and hello, everyone. I'm a certified image consultant. I've been in this field for 18 years. I speak at a number of colleges, actually, on preparing for interviews, dressing for business, professional etiquette. So, yeah, this morning I'm going to be adding some comments along with Heather, and then we're going to get into some etiquette revolving around career fairs.
Right. So the reason why we thought it would be really helpful to invite Sharon over is as we are going back to school in just probably a couple of weeks, right around Labor Day, people are going back to school. Some of you might have started your programs already. You will soon face corporate events, and you'll be going to interviews and career fairs. And for a lot of us, this is good, but for some of us, this can be a little challenging, right? How do you break into that conversation? How do you get people's attention? How long should you talk? You know, a lot of that I'm sure Sharon will talk about today. So that will definitely help you sort of navigate the fall recruiting landscape. So without further ado, we're going to talk quickly about how to answer questions around hobbies. And Sharon, please feel free to chime in or share your experience. But I always ask students to prepare for this segment of extracurricular activities. Reason being, I think when you go for an interview, your employers are not trying to find a robot, right? They're looking for people that are not only qualified to do the job, but are also fun and easy to work with, right? Someone that's real, that has personalities, and that will fit in nicely with the team, right? So if you get your resume, that probably means professionally, employers see the qualification that they like. And being invited to an interview to talk about yourself is another way to show fit. And last week we talked about cultural fit as well, and I think this is a natural extension to that. Now, in addition to hobbies, people could ask the question in different ways, right? What kind of extracurricular activities are you engaged in, right? What do you do for fun? And what are some of the things that you do outside work or school that we'd like to hear about? So I can share a personal example. I was on the interview team at investment banks where I worked. And every time we ask this question, especially we see what you write at the bottom of the page, and we will ask about those. And even in my own interviews, and I was fairly senior at that point, and went for an interview at a different bank. So when I walk in, the managing director saw me. And the first question, and some of you might know, I have a culinary degree and just my personal interest. So I walk in, the MD said, okay, so you're in CFA and you can cook. And we basically didn't talk about anything related to work or professional qualification. We basically just talked about how difficult it is to get that CFA certificate, and then what kind of food I like, and we talk about travel. And at the end, it really learned a lot about each other. So this is one of the things I was talking about earlier, is that people know through your resume, your technical skills. And a lot of the interview, when you get to that point, it's getting to know you and find the right fit. So what kind of hobbies should you mention? Productive hobbies, right? And something that adds value to your community. Sports is always a good one. Professional development, right? Educational activities, make it not sounding nerdy, but something that shows your intellectual curiosity and something that you do to help you make yourself a well-rounded person and better, right? Exercise and health related, always a good one. And hobbies that contribute to the health and well-being of yourself, your community, and the broader society. So I think all those are good. What you want to reflect are your leadership skills, your team-oriented, goal-oriented, passionate, your tenacity, for example, talking about sports, and then entrepreneurship. That's always a good quality in a modern workplace. So what should you not mention? I like to tell people to avoid things that are political or controversial in nature, right? Protesting, striking, or those things. You never know who is interviewing you, their political viewpoint, right? And that is something you want to park on the side. Don't ever say you don't have any hobbies, right? I'm sure if you ask yourself, most of us are passionate about something, even if it's reading, hiking, or simple things like that. Show people that there's personalities, there are things outside work or study that you do. Don't bring up personal issues as related to your hobbies. And I definitely heard that kind of answer. And I'm not kidding. One person told me in an interview, she said she wanted to work out because she wants to find a boyfriend. So, and believe it or not, that's a real answer that I heard. And you want to stay off those things. Any things you want to, you would avoid, Sharon, or any thoughts on you would include?
Yeah, I mean, I like the list that you have there. I mean, definitely anything that's political or could be controversial. I just want to actually backtrack a second to question that you got asked and how you answered it, you know, and when you got involved with the cooking conversation in the interview, because I think part of the reason that they ask these types of questions is because the interviewer is really looking to engage with you. I mean, it shouldn't just be, oh, a question and answer. You really want to get into a more back and forth type of conversation on a topic. And it's actually not a bad idea if you know who the person is to do a little research on them and see maybe you can come up with something in common, whether it's sports or whether it's cooking or, you know, whatever the interest is that you have in common. And that is actually a great way to start a back and forth conversation.
Absolutely. I think that point of researching and find common ground is the kind of thing as student we feel like, okay, the person interviewing me is there and I am here, right? That probably isn't true. Look at that person's profile. Where did that person go to school? Maybe there's a little sports that you can talk about, even if you don't know a whole lot, right? A lot of people, a lot of graduates are still fans of the school sporting teams. And that's a little nice thing to help you connect with the person.
Definitely, yes, right. And I mean, there's a chance that whatever hobby you have could be a hobby that they're interested in as well, but it's better to do a little research and kind of go in that direction.
Right. So I actually helped a student recently. His hobby is tennis, and he was a national level athlete when he was in China. So that's something I respect a lot. Right? He's a programming major, computer science programmer, and to see someone that's well-rounded, who is a national level tennis player, I respect that, right? It shows some tenacity, shows intelligence, and you know, I would love to work with him because you never know. Someday you get to play tennis together and you can learn something from that person, right?
Definitely.
Right. So let's take a look at a couple of examples. And Sharon, I love your view on them as well. So these are, as always, we use our students' real examples, and they weren't like this since day one, right? So this is what we do. We help them fine tune their answer. Sometimes we help them, you know, balance the material a little bit, challenge the content a little bit. So, and I think these would be something I feel that are at a good place. So let's take a look at this one. I find myself interested in creative activity. I like crochet and engaging in other DIY activities. And did I pronounce this correctly? Crocheting?
Crocheting, yes,
crochet
crocheting.
is productive because it is something that you can wear rather than having to buy retail. My family love the products that I made, whether it's a hat, scarf, or sweater. Other things like origami, and that's Japanese paper folding, also interest me because I can make a showcase of creativity at home or at work. These projects are usually affordable. I've made many useful objects in the daily life, such as coasters, folders, cards, and other decorative items. These projects are a relaxing way for me to be creative, adding a nice and warm touch to my environment. My classmates and coworkers really appreciate the thoughtful creativity as well. What do you think, Sharon? I thought, so this is my thought, the comments I wrote is, even though it seemed very small, but it shows that creativity and also the caring nature, right? It shows that he or she is making things for coworkers and family, and you just get that sense of real warm and genuine nature of that person.
Definitely, right. A caring person, probably someone who's a little introverted, which is fine. Someone who doesn't mind being alone and being creative and can certainly entertain themselves. I mean, I would say whatever you describe as your hobby, just keep it 100% positive. Don't say, well, I do this particular thing because I get bored easily, or, just even if it's true, just whatever you say, just keep it 100% positive, which this answer, certainly is.
Definitely. Thank you. And that's a really good point, right? You don't want to say, I do this just because I'm bored, or, I have to win all the time. Hence, I do.
Exactly. Right.
Okay. So there's another activity. Another hobby example. I spent most of my spare time on sports and working out. I like yoga, running, and I'm training for my first marathon this coming October. My schoolwork is challenging, so sports and workout not only help me stay healthy, but also relax me. I like yoga because that is the time I used to meditate peacefully. Hiking takes me outside to enjoy nature, clear my mind, and recharge. I'm also proud of the fact that I'm preparing for the NYC Marathon this fall. It has been a personal goal, and I'm excited that it will finally happen. Preparing for the marathon is a commitment. I'm dedicating time to training, rain or shine, and I am pushing myself to achieve this goal. I've also found a group of like-minded runners from my school to train together, making friends while embracing the challenge. I'm looking forward to be able to complete this marathon and really meet this personal goal. Thoughts, Sharon?
Yeah, again, it's very positive. It shows a lot of good qualities about yourself, because it certainly shows dedication, commitment, the fact that you're willing to push yourself. So those are all things that can certainly be related into the job market.
And as a manager, I always, this would be a similar answer I would give too. And also, it probably doesn't hurt to tell people that you're healthy, right? And you can deal with a demanding job with healthy, not just physical health, but also mentally. It seems this person have a way to balance and release the stress through hiking, training in marathon, and yoga, right? So that all seems to be a subtle, not to a good quality, to good quality.
That's an excellent point, right? And also the fact that they say they go out rain or shine, so they're willing to overcome obstacles to reach their goal. Whether it's the weather or something that could happen at work, or some issues, it seems as if they push themselves to reach the goal regardless of the obstacles.
Right. So yeah, subtly, there's a lot of good qualities coming out. All right. Now we'll talk about some of the weird questions. And this is one of those, I would say probably the weirder ones of the ones I've seen. What animal would you be, right? And it's 100% real. One of my friends, who's also a director for ChampAmerica, he is someone known to ask this question. Okay? The weird answers that he heard is always like a fun topic for when we have drinks. So honestly, I think it's hard to imagine what animal you would be, because this is just not how we commonly think, right? We don't always try to think, oh, if we were an animal, what would it be? But this is a question. They're not only trying to see the characteristics, right? What are your qualities, characteristics? But these type of questions is also a good way for employers to see how well you think on your feet, right? Especially those client-facing jobs. You never know what kind of question or situation you might be in. So testing how you think, how you conduct yourself, this would be actually a good little opportunity. So how you should think about this question, I would keep it brief and concise, right? And choose an animal with positive qualities or reputation, right? And make sure you mention animal that possesses the quality that are suited for the job. And I'll give you an example of what not to do. Again, this is my friend's example. He was looking for an analyst for a group. And that group has just gone through a lot of turmoil, right? A lot of people leaving the group, and someone they hired not too long ago left. So when they were hiring for that person, they specifically said, through the conversation and also through the job description, they're looking for someone that's committed, right? That can be there and help the group turn around. So this question, what kind of animal would you be, came up at the end. So the candidate thought about it for probably 20, 30 seconds. And he said, if I were an animal, I would like to be a bird. Okay, I need to migrate. I need to change in order to, continue to reinvent myself and to survive. So my friend, when he was doing the interview, kind of just said, the whole interview, we said we need stability. We need someone to be here. And deep in your head, you're thinking you need to migrate, right? So we can all picture how that interview ended. But that's the one example I would say. Really think about what this job is looking for and then come up with the qualities, even if you don't have an animal in mind, but think about the qualities. Okay. And definitely don't say, I don't want to be an animal, right? It's just not answering the question is not an option in an interview. Okay, so
Heather, excuse me, just let me just make a comment on that, because even if you don't get asked this particular question, you may get asked some kind of what seems like either a trick question or something that you haven't, prepared to answer. And I would say there's nothing wrong with just taking a pause. You can actually repeat the question back to the person you're speaking. Mm-hmm. It gives you an extra 10 to 15 seconds to, think about an answer, and just be poised. Don't let them get you rattled, whatever the question is, because I don't know if you've ever experienced someone coming on, an interviewer coming on a little strong, or, seeing if they're trying to get you to, lose your cool, basically. So it's definitely something you don't want to do. Just stay poised, answer the question in a regular tone of voice. Don't get, rattled.
Right. And I think that's a really good point, right? And I think it's important to be able to laugh it off as well, right? In a positive way, right? This is a question, if you don't know the answer, or, the answer is silly, that doesn't mean it's bad, right? As long as you can be poised, you can answer those questions with a valid point. I think, a little sillier answer isn't something, isn't bad, right?
Exactly.
Let's take a look at two examples, right? And I think, let's read them first. If I were an animal, I would be an owl because they're observant. I find myself constantly assessing situation as a whole, and thinking about a problem from a holistic point of view. All are very goal-oriented, and they can hunt for their prey very precisely. The ability to observe is a key, and I love that quality. The other example is, if I were an animal, I would be an ant because ants work collaboratively with other ants. Ants might seem small individually, but they're able to work with others and are hardworking, right? So do I think they're really grand answers that are so brilliant? Not really, but they're really reasonable answers, right? If you just say that, it's a little silly, but you're highlighting some of the quality, being observant, thinking holistically, or collaboration with others, right? And I think you can easily pass the test as a very good answer, right? What do you think, Sharon?
Yeah, they're both good answers. Like you say, simple. There's nothing tricky or complicated about any of them. But yeah, and I think it's the right answer doesn't comprise any just one particular animal. It really could be, you can take whatever animal you think of and then use those characteristics in a positive manner.
Right. So I got answers that this person's a unicorn, right? And if you think about it, unicorn's not even an answer, but this person's trying to highlight his uniqueness, his drive. So I think, like I said earlier, could be a little silly, but you're stressing a positive point, right? And you're trying to just basically highlight a quality. So again, if you get a question like that from the left field, don't get rattled, right? Focus on the quality, communicate with your interviewer. It doesn't have to be a grand answer to impress anybody.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's quick for me today. We've done 9 weeks of interview boot camp. So for those of you that have caught up, either been with us live or caught up afterwards, congratulations. And I hope you have all your questions prepared. If you haven't, it's really time to sit down and make sure you go back to your notes and really think about those behavioral questions, right? One of the other things I always say is for us, especially for a lot of us that are international students, if you think you can go to an interview, hearing the question for the first time, think of answers and organize the language and then connect with your interviewers, that's just going to be really challenging. So like everything else, a little bit of practice, especially practice ahead of time, will make your interviews a lot easier. Right? So, and you know where to find us. So with that said, Sharon, I'm going to turn this back to you, and we're going to talk about career fair etiquette.
Sure. Okay. So yeah, the reason I picked the topic of career fair etiquette is that this is definitely something that you'll be experiencing in college. And I mean, the colleges put these career fairs on for your benefit. So it's up to you to make the most of the situation. It's a little scary for everyone. I mean, even adults walking into a room where you don't know anyone and you feel you're being judged. It could be scary. There's nothing wrong with feeling a little bit apprehensive, but hopefully the tips that we're going to be talking about will make you feel more comfortable and able to, again, just take advantage of the opportunity that's before you. So I mentioned this before, but research beforehand who will be there. You will definitely get a list of the companies and figure out who you want to talk to, because there may not be time to speak to everyone who is there. A lot of times at these career fairs, there will be recruiters who have gone to your particular college. So this is something that you may have in common with them, and it's just another good talking point. As far as what you're going to wear, you want to be in business appropriate clothing. So this doesn't mean that it has to be most recent trend or, the most expensive item that you own. I'd say just wear something conservative in a neutral color. So, whether it's blue, gray, black, which is actually, I suggest black more for women than for men. For you guys, your suits should really be in a blue or a gray tone. Wear a button-down dress shirt, wear a tie. It may come, the instructions may come as saying business dress or business casual, but definitely I would err on the side of being more formal and more conservatively dressed. For ladies, yeah, a dress, a skirt, a pantsuit. Just don't wear anything too short, too tight. Again, just more conservative and traditionally business wear. Now, I imagine you know what your elevator pitch is. It's basically a 30 to 60 second commercial about yourself. So you can prepare this beforehand, practice to yourself, practice on your phone. You can record yourself to see what you think. And you want to just tell a little bit about your interests, about why you're looking in a particular industry. And just maybe tell a couple of your good qualities, and if you have a very brief story to share about how you've accomplished a goal, this could be a good time to include it as well. You want to be very comfortable with your 60-second elevator pitch before you go into the career fair. If you have business cards, bring them with you. Have plenty of copies of your resume. I suggest getting beforehand, and I have leather down here, portfolio case. It doesn't have to be actual leather, but just a black or a brown or some kind of a classy looking accessory that you can keep a pen, a pad, your resume, business cards if you have them in this particular case. And that's really all you should be carrying around. If you need to bring a small purse for your keys or your driver's license, your wallet, I would say keep that. But Heather, I'm sure you've seen people, going into these events or even coming into you, they're kind of loaded down with things, right?
I was just going to make that comment. I've seen people that come in with backpacks and with gym gear. And I've seen a gentleman with his workout shoes hanging outside his bag at a career fair. And it almost seemed like, okay, that person just came back from the gym and all sweaty. Like, I don't really want to shake your hand right now. And then you kind of maybe should go back and get yourself cleaned up and drop off all the stuff before coming back again. So yeah, and I was just going to make that comment.
Right. Okay. So yeah, the less you bring with you, the better, but a leather portfolio case for your resumes is definitely a good addition. And then be prepared with questions and things you want to learn, because it's not just a career fair, especially, it's not an interview. It's a way for you to learn about the particular companies that are exhibiting at the career fair and for them to get to know you a little bit as well. But definitely be prepared with questions. I have some examples, I think, on a further slide. So,
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, and so while you're there, it's really not the time to be shy. You need to stand up straight, have good posture, use what's called a power pose, and then go over and introduce yourself to the people that you want to meet. There may be a line, especially for the more popular companies that are there. So, wait in line. As you're doing that, go over your elevator pitch to yourself. And when you get to the front of the line, introduce yourself, use your full name, your first name and your last name. I hear a lot of people just using their first name, and it's not as, it doesn't give as good an impression. Make sure you have a strong handshake. Make eye contact with the people that you want to speak with, especially, if it's not a formal line, it may just be a kind of an informal grouping of people. If there's someone in that group that you want to speak with, look at them. Don't be shy. Look them in the eye. It's incredible the impact that making eye contact has as far as getting to speak with someone and as far as having them pay attention to you. Begin a conversation with small talk. I think Heather had covered a couple of topics earlier. Even, a hobby or the weather or, the location. Small talk is important in interview and networking and career fair situations because it gets you off on a certain level that makes you seem like you're not just all about business. People will see you as a person, right? So, just maybe come up with a couple topics. Maybe there's been a big sports event recently, the Super Bowl or the World Series. If you really can't think of any small talk, you can open with your elevator pitch, which you've been practicing, or ask a question. Some of the questions could be, why did you choose to work at this company? Why do you like working there? Tell me a little bit more about what you do. As far as the company as a whole, or you can make it more personal and tell me what you do in the particular company that you're speaking with. Always give your resume and get the recruiter's card at the end of the conversation. This is the only way you're going to get their information that you can follow up with them. And they'll certainly have cards, even if you don't have them at the moment. If there's, sometimes there'll be food or drinks or something to refresh yourself with. You decide you want something to eat or drink. Just use your left hand because you want to keep your right hand free to shake. And not only that, even if you're not having anything to eat or drink at the moment, you know, just think about what happens to your hand when you're holding on to a cold beverage, or, you know, maybe you're snacking on something that's a little greasy or slick. Not the best food to serve at a career fair, but people don't always think of these things before.
At a corporate event, right, there's usually some refreshment, so food or drink.
At a corporate event, right, there'll be refreshments, and it's fine to have something to eat, but just, you know, use your left hand. And then as you're in a conversation with the recruiter, ask when they're looking to hire, maybe ask what positions are open, and the point of this is when to find out when you should follow up.
Right.
Because you'll be sending a thank you note, whether it's an email or a handwritten note, because you have the information from the person on their card. But you also want to know when you should follow up to learn when they're going to be starting interviewing or when the position will open up.
Next page.
Next page.
Okay. So, and I think it's funny that you mentioned about the food and drinks, right? And usually at corporate events, there's always something. And I know as a student, it's hard for you to skip that food, but really just make sure if you're going to eat, maybe eat a little on the side first before joining the conversation, right? It's kind of awkward when you're trying to talk and then you have something in your hand, or you're trying to finish that slice of pizza. So just keep those things in mind. That could put you in a really awkward position.
Definitely, right. And also get there early, or get there right when the event starts, because you're going to know in your mind who you want to speak to first. They may be some of the more popular companies that other students want to get into. So get there early, or exactly when it starts. As Heather said, that's the time to have anything to eat or drink if you need to. I mean, my recommendation is to actually have something to eat or drink at home before you leave. But just get there early, and it's definitely to your benefit.
Right.
So yeah, so some possible questions that you can ask. What is your hiring process like? I mean, oftentimes, something just came up on my screen, excuse me. You know, oftentimes there's a series of interviews, and this is something that you want to know, and it also shows the the recruiter that you are serious about working there. You can ask them, why did you choose to work here? It's, you know, more of a personal question, but it could be enlightening. What is the typical work week like for a new hire? And I mean, you could maybe find out some information that makes you realize that it's not your number one choice to be employed. Mm-hmm. What is your favorite part about working here? What makes your company different from other companies in the industry? So this could also shed light on what the company values are. And then this is something, you know, for you to keep in mind when you go in there. Hopefully you'll get an interview there. And this is something for you to keep in there, because say, I mean, just to give an example, say, you know, it's a pharmaceutical company, and they say, well, what makes us different is that we run, you know, 4 to 5 safety tests on every drug before we start selling it to the public. Whereas, you know, the industry standard is 2 or 3. So just as an example, something to keep in mind, oh, they're very concerned about safety, and they want to make sure that their products work before they offer them to the general public.
So can I add one point here? And also be mindful, right? These are researches you should be doing before asking, because it's possible that your interviewer, the person that you're networking with, can turn that question back to you and say, what do you think? Right? So that shows you need to do a little preparation. You don't want to be completely caught off guard and just expecting an answer from the person, from the company, right? Because a little bit of industry research shows you understand the culture of the company and how you fit in this particular company position.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you can learn a lot from the company's website, and don't just go to the homepage, you know, dig a little deeper, see what their mission statement is, what their value statement is. Yeah, and I mean, if you do have the information as far as graduates from your particular school that are working there, that could be helpful as well.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
they may be at the career fair, or you can even ask the recruiter if they know them.
Right. And it shows effort too, right? I know someone from the company and I got the inside scoop almost of what's great about this company. And then another reason to convince people that you know what you're doing, you know why you're applying for the job.
Right, for sure. And then how can I improve my chances of receiving a job offer? The person may answer this question, they may not, but it certainly doesn't hurt to ask, and then just store the information for the future.
Got it. Next page.
Next page, yep. So yeah, so once you finish at the career fair, you have some following up work to do. Certainly send an email or a handwritten thank you note to every recruiter you speak with. I mean, I often get asked as far as, especially interviews, because you'll certainly be thanking people when you go on more formal interviews. Is it better to send an email or is it better to send a handwritten note? So my answer to this question is whichever one is easier for you is the best one, because it's lovely to receive a handwritten note in the mail. The thing is that it really needs to be sent out that very day or the next day. You know, you can't wait a week and then have the mail take another couple of days. It's the person, you're going to be out of their mind already. If you're so inclined to write a handwritten note, that's a great thing to do. It's something that will make you memorable. But if you're not, an email is really perfectly fine. And one of the advantages of email is that the person can respond to you. So it can actually, start a back and forth conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I say certainly if you've promised them any information. So say, just to go back to the example that Heather gave as far as the interest in cooking in culinary school. Maybe you got on a topic and you were talking about cooking and you mentioned, your mother has this fantastic recipe for blueberry pie. Why not send it along? These are the kinds of things that people really appreciate, and it helps you stand out, to be a little personal, to be a little differently, to think creatively.
Right. You're kind of extending the life of that conversation, right? Sometimes the conversation is cut and dry. It ends at the career fair, right? A lot of people say, how do I follow up? And these are your opportunity to.
Absolutely. Whatever you've spoken about, or even maybe just, it doesn't have to be a recipe, maybe just send them a link. Maybe there's an article that you read recently, something that you were talking to them about, and just say, oh, you might be interested in taking a look at this article. It will definitely make you more memorable than most people that they've spoken with. Connect with them on LinkedIn. Every business person is on LinkedIn. And this is another opportunity to send them a little note, say it was nice to meet with them, thank them for their time at the career fair. I'd like to connect with you on LinkedIn. Then I said follow up by email with any additional information that was promised. And then going forward, keep a list of these companies that you've spoken with, and then continue from time to time to check online for any openings at the company.
Right.
Whether it's at one of the, career websites or their particular website or on LinkedIn, just check and see. And then, of course, follow up again at the time that they told you they're looking to hire and that they may be starting the interview process. So that's it. I mean, anything you want to add is about the career fairs, Heather?
I think you touched upon a lot of the good subjects, and people often ask, how do I prepare for career fair or corporate event or the follow-ups? I think one of the questions, and I get this question a lot, is when I'm at a crowded career fair or corporate event, and oftentimes you see two recruiters or 2-3 people from the company surrounded by 8, 9, 10 students at any given time, right? And it's a tricky situation to say, how do I, just kind of that conversation, force myself into that conversation, or how do I exit a conversation that I feel like, okay, I've done enough.
Okay, no, exiting, no, those are good points. I'll start with getting into the conversation, but exiting a conversation is important as well, because obviously there are a number of people that you want to speak with there. As far as getting yourself into a group, I would say move, as close into that particular cluster of people as you can. Again, use eye contact. That's your tool to be noticed. Just take a quick observation of who's doing the most talking, and you can kind of see each group like this has a leader. And that's the person you want to connect with. So, chances are it's going to be one of the recruiters, but it might be someone more senior in the company. Are going to be the ones that are doing most of the talking, and everyone in that little cluster is going to be focused on them. And they're the people that you want to make eye contact with, and then just kind of slowly, work your way into the group. People will move aside for you, and if you connect eye contact with the person that's the more senior person or doing most of the talking, you'll be able to then join in the conversation. I'd also like to add that it's oftentimes easier to break into a group of 3 or more people than actually 2, because when 2 are in a conversation, it's going to be more focused, and it's going to be less general, and it could be something that they are just as a little more intense when it's 2 people. So I would say if you have an opportunity and you see 2 people talking, maybe, just walk away, come back in 10 or 15 minutes and go speak to somebody else at that time.
Great point.
Yeah, as far as exiting a conversation, this also is something that adults, really anybody that's in one of these networking or group kind of corporate event settings, has been in the situation where you are talking to someone, you feel as if the conversation should be ending and the other person is just continuing to talk. So really the best way to get out of it, just wait for them to take a breath, extend your hand, just have your handshake ready, extend your hand, say, thank you, it was a pleasure to meet you. If you haven't gotten their card yet or given them your resume, this is the time to do it. And then, just walk away. Really don't feel badly, don't feel obligated to continue in a conversation that you feel isn't going anywhere else for you.
So I've actually used this trick, I think at, this is more of a professional conferences where I get into a group conversation and it feels like it's time for me to move on. I actually said, I'm gonna grab a bottle of water. Can I bring anything for anyone here? So one way I'm making an announcement that I'm leaving, but I'm also trying to be nice to say, hey, can I bring anything? I have yet to have anyone say to me, yes, please bring me something, right? But this is, even if that person did, I still will gladly help, but I feel like this is a good opportunity to just make a gracious exit using a strategy like this.
Yes, that's a great idea, right? Just offer to say you're going to get something to drink or a bottle of water, and then, offer to bring something back.
So, well, Sharon, in addition to LinkedIn, and I know you do a lot of speeches at different universities, and it's probably something that's still in planning stage, but if there is any workshops that you already know, you're welcome to share, or if there's anything upcoming, let us know, and we'd be happy to share with our students in those schools.
Oh, sure. Thank you. Yeah, I'm planning to do some dining etiquette programs actually in the fall for students. So certainly I'll let you know. And as we do the dining etiquette, I speak about other things as well, but it's usually over a meal, and it's a good way to just practice your table manners.
Oh, that's actually, it's great. And it's something that a lot of our students find to be challenging. And, if you unfortunately have to go to a job interview through a lunch interview, I think that's tremendous amount of pressure, even for myself as well, right? It's just try to balance eating and talking. I don't think it's any small endeavor.
It's not easy for anybody, but what's nice about the dining etiquette program, that I offer is that it's a really good chance to practice, and I actually give individual attention to people that are just having a little trouble holding the silverware or just aren't quite sure how to do it. And and I help. And also we talk about, if you're left-handed or, there are just ways to get around little challenges that some people have.
Perfect. And maybe we can invite you back for another interview on that subject as well.
Sure, Heather. Sure. I would love that.
Great. So everyone on the screen, these are Sharon's contact, and we'd love to hear from you, and you're welcome to come to us, and we'll help you locate Sharon as well. So great. Well, thank you so much for your time, Sharon, and everyone online or who's going to join us later on YouTube or our company website. Thank you. And again, 9 weeks, not easy, not small accomplishment. And we look forward to seeing you more down the road. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Heather. So long, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.